Hi, I'm Sean and welcome to Aggie Arms. Today we're going to be taking you through all the steps of priming and then final coating some parts for the Farmall 200. If you remember last time, I showed you how I primed and then I got a little excited and I final coated, and we didn't really go through and show you all the processes that are involved in doing the final top coat. And then also I have some of the parts that I also did for the front wheels that are sitting right here. Now, the process we're going to go on, really we're waiting for the second tire to show up, and that is a socket. And we might as well tell you the story now. So I ordered 2 tires, 515s, from an online distributor, and they said they were in stock and they shipped them. Well, when FedEx shows up, they have 1 tire. I asked, is there a second tire? And they said, no, we only have 1. So I notified the company that, hey, I only got 1 tire, I ordered 2. And they responded back very, very quickly, and they said, hey, with 72 hours, we're going to check with FedEx, see if they can't find it, and then if they can't, we'll deal with it, the tire. Now, myself thinking that I ordered 2 tires because I need 2 tires, I only got 1 tire. Okay, so after 72 hours, you're not going to find it, you're going to send me a second tire. That's what I expected. Well, lo and behold, I send an email, I think Thursday night, I don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden, Friday, I see an email, your refund has been initiated. So they were going to initiate the refund, and I'm like, what refund? I didn't ask for a refund, but they're refunding me. So I emailed them and Friday and said, hey, I need a second tire, what's going on? They email me back and they say, well, we are out of tires at the warehouse that you purchased, and we can't sell them to you at that price. I'm like, well, this is weird. So I call. Well, long story short, there's another warehouse where the tire is $3 more. They issue me a coupon for $2.67 to make it closer to the price of the first one I bought, and then they shipped it. This would have been on, I think, Monday. It was supposed to be here Wednesday. Not here Wednesday. Then it's supposed to come here today, Thursday. Not here Thursday. So it says it should be here Friday. We'll see. Checking the tracking, it just left Georgia earlier today, so it's more likely that it might get here tomorrow. But anyways, we are waiting on the tires before we can do the rear tires. So, yeah, kind of like Pete, waiting on his fronts. Rears. I'm waiting on my fronts. So needless to say, we're just going to do parts. We're going to go through, and there's no real right way to do it. If you watch Pete's episode on the Super C, he got everything on the wheels, and he cleaned parts, put them on, cleaned parts, put them on. Well, I'm just we're going to just do parts. We're going to set them there, and then maybe we'll have all the parts done, and then we can just start slapping parts on and finish the tractor. So we'll show you what we're going to be doing tonight. We have the rims for the aforementioned front tires. They are right here. We're going to prime them. We have the shroud that goes around the cooling fan. We're both of those. We have this would be the right brake pedal. We have the sealed bearing for the fan, which I would want to give the previous owner a big hug for doing that. We have the linkages for the brakes. We have the, let's see, this is the left brake pedal here. Here's the clutch. We have the support. I believe this is the support for the gas tank. We have the air cleaner filter. Well, a filter that goes on top where the oil goes. We have the oil filter cover. We have, this bolts onto the front. This is what the cooling fan bolts onto there, and then the coolant hose coming out of the radiator goes into here. This is a bracket for the radiator, and then we have the 2 sides for the battery boxes. We also have some other parts that we're going to do, but we're going to get these done, let them dry off before we move. We don't want to get our table too loaded up. We still might have too much on here. So the other parts we're going to try and get to tonight are as follows. Hopefully we can get the hydraulic hose done. This is the steering shaft with the U-joint. This is the distributor mount right there, run the distributor, and woo, out of focus, out of focus, out of focus. And then this little bracket is for the grill mounts there. You'll see the starter. We're not starter tonight because the starter has to be painted black, and I don't have the Iron Guard black yet, the enamel that I want to use because it's a hardener. I could go with a spray black, but it doesn't last as long. So we're going to get the black, and when we paint black, we're going to do the rear axles, we're going to do the starter, and it seems like there's one other part that's black that I can't think of right now. But anyways, we're going to do all the black parts together. So yeah. As far as the colors, once we get this all epoxied, we're probably going to, we can either shoot silver and then shoot red, or shoot red and then shoot silver. Yeah, it'll probably be tomorrow morning that we do that. I'll probably, I don't know, we'll see what we do. So anyways, so that's the plan here. We are waiting for the epoxy to finish curing, which it should be about done, and then we're going to start spraying. So sit back and watch. One thing when you're painting is you want to have good airflow. Now, if I was inside of a paint booth, you'd have positive pressure, or you just basically have good ventilation just to suck stuff up, so that way there's no fumes. Here inside my barn, I don't have that, so I have my big Rural King fan in front of me to suck the air out, and a smaller 24 18-inch fan here blowing air this way to try to get some airflow, so as I paint, it's pushing everything that way hopefully, and not going to be staying in the barn. And the other thing, like we mentioned, anytime you're using anything with a hardener or catalyst, you need to make sure you're wearing an air mask. So with being in the barn and with the airflow I have, the air mask here, it's the same thing you saw Pete use in his shows. It seemed to work well for me so far. So we're going to go ahead and get started and spray primer. As I spray, what you're going to notice is I'm not loading it on very heavy. Basically, once you have the part covered with the epoxy, that's good. You don't need to come back with a second coat. You just need to make sure it's coated, and then you're good. So as you see here, I did the inside and the outside. When the epoxy hardens, this will prevent moisture from getting in and rusting the rim. Very important that you do the inside of the rim with the epoxy, because that's where you get a lot of rust damage. And this rim right here, I believe, yeah, it was this one. When I got to it, it had a lot of rust in there. You know, maybe another 10, 20 years it would have rusted through. Also notice I'm still using the light. Okay, looking here, here's a spot you need to dig in. So there, you're checking the light. Making sure you get everything. You can get the primer in other colors, and the other colors may be easier to see and use, but the problem being is they're also, like white would be, you can really easily tell when you got white, but then it's hard. But then if you chip it, it shows up, and it doesn't work as good. Black, good luck trying to cover that with red. So yeah, as you go through here, we're just making sure we got a nice coat. Looks like we do. We're going to let this one set and dry. We're going to go to another part, and then we'll come back and we'll take this off, and we'll put the other rim on. I think we'll do the fan shroud next. my help is out here. I'm painting. You need to go back see Mama, okay? My 2-year-old David loves being out here in the barn, and it's killing him right now that he can't be, because since I got the front wheels of the new the 200 jacked up, I don't want him being out here. Not that it's going to fall, but it's just, you know, overly safe, because I'd hate for something to happen. So, okay, still waiting on this. I think we'll go to the fan, and we'll come back to the other end. What I'm doing is, as I'm painting here, I'm slowly moving the parts over here to this table, so that way they can dry and be undisturbed, except for the rim, because I got it up on the 5-gallon bucket. Little speck of paint that was going to let go here, so just scrape it off with a knife, and we'll come back and hit it with epoxy. Not that anyone's ever going to see it, but we want to make sure it's nice. Okay, this is dry. We're going to move it. We're going to do the next one. I mixed up about two batches of about approximately 16 ounces of primer. I have a feeling it may be more than I need. If so, we will go back and spray heavier, just because no sense to waste it. But right now our coverage is okay. What, buddy? You need me to plug your tractor in? I'll plug it in later, okay? His battery-powered tractor is his life. I wasn't thinking when I did that. I should have done everything and then rotated it. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to stop the video here. We're going to continue. I'm going to continue the priming process. I don't want to show you 45 minutes of me priming. That's going to get a little old. And then we'll stop. We'll come back and we'll briefly show how we do the final. Go through how we're setting up the paint for the top coat, and then we'll finish the episode. Because I don't want to keep this to be a 50-minute episode. So let me finish this, and when you come back, I'll be ready to start talking top coat. Okay, it's the next morning and we're going to spray some red here. So this is the part we didn't show you when we were doing the chassis. So kind of want to throw this in here so you can see what we're doing. The top coat we're using is Case IH2150 red paint. It's a enamel paint. There's two colors of red with IH. The 2150 is the one that's correct for the older tractors that we are doing. Being in an enamel, we're going to be using a hardener with it. And so the hardener we use is the Fleet Pro paint hardener. And then we also use a thinner, which is the Fleet Pro thinner. We mix this to an 8-to-1 ratio. So here on the paint cup, you'll see where you have this. The first line is where the first column here on the left is where you fill the paint. The second column is where you fill the hardener, and then the third column is where you fill the thinner too. We're going to be making 2 batches, which translates to approximately, you look here, it translates to about a little over 12 ounces. Based on what we did before with the chassis and everything, we did 3 parts, and looking at the stuff, we're probably 2 is probably going to be a little much. 1 is probably not going to be enough, so we're going to do 2. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I've already shaken up the paint here, so we'll open up the can. And you'll see here is the red paint. So what we're going to do is, the hardest part about when you're pouring paint and using small quantities like we're doing like this is trying to pour get the appropriate amount. If I was using, if I knew I was going to use all of this, it wouldn't be that hard. But trying to pour this into here and get the appropriate amount doesn't quite work. So we get a sacrificial cup here, and we basically use it as a dipping cup. And so we're going to throw double in here. We're going to get it up to the 2 mark. So let's just dip it and go. Dip it, let it drain here, and we're going to hold it and do it that way. So pause it right here. Okay, so as you see here, we are at the 2 mark, a little bit above the actual line of paint is right here. So we're right where we need to be. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add the hardener. Now, is the hardener necessary? No, it is not necessary. But this is what makes the paint dry quicker and also gives it a glossier finish. So here you can see we're slowly adding, bringing the level up to 2. We're going to stop. If you add a little bit more hardener, it isn't a bad thing, but it is not necessarily cheap, so we don't want to waste it. Okay, so we have our hardener added. And now next we're going to come back in with the thinner. Okay, didn't show this step, but we've added the thinner and brought it up to the line we needed to. Now the thinner I'm using is Fleet Pro thinner. Could I get by with using a different thinner? Possibly. But formulations for stuff, even like lacquer thinner, get changed due to government regulations and stuff like this. And they recommend using the their own thinner for a variety of reasons. So that's what we're using. Okay, so stirring the paint. Unlike the enamels, there is no induction period not the enamels, with the epoxies. The primer, needed to sit for 15-20 minutes. This doesn't, okay? I'm just stirring to make sure everything gets here. gets mixed in. Now, if it had a lot of air bubbles, we could let it sit for 15-20 minutes to maybe get the air bubbles out, but we're just stirring. I don't see the need, haven't seen the need to let this, sit for 15-20 minutes or anything like that, because it doesn't get you anything. So we're just going to keep stirring here, and then we're going to load up the paint gun, and then we'll show you that process. Now, one of the downfalls of this versus the primer is it takes a lot longer for it to dry and get it to where you can touch. So you kind of have to be a little smarter and think ahead for what you're going to do as far as where you're going to put your parts and how you're going to flip them. So with some of the parts, we're going to do the sides that aren't going to touch, like the inside of the battery boxes. We're going to do the inside edge up at the top, and then we can flip it and we can do everything else as far as the outside. And then we can come back later and do the other sides. The parts like here where there's some contact, if I was hanging it, it may not be an issue, but I really don't have a good place to hang this. Although we might try, I have an idea, we might try. So we're going to have to be a little creative on how we do some stuff here. So, yeah. Now, as far as how we go about painting, we're going to go with a light coat first, and then after the light coat, then we'll put a heavier coat on. Okay. So let me get stuff set up here, and then we'll get running. Okay, so as far as the precautions you use, safety precautions you use when you're painting, one good idea to have some gloves on for two reasons. One, to keep the paint off your hands so you don't have to use a lot of solvents to get them off your skin, which over the time isn't necessarily good. And also, more importantly, to keep the oils off the paint. We've sprayed my compressor just kicked off in case you can't tell. All of these parts are coated with the epoxy, so they're ready to accept the paint. Your hands have oils on them, so you don't want to ruin your final top coat with touching the paint and getting oils on there. So that's why we have the gloves. Also, we're again using the safety precaution mask. And then we also have our fan set up. There is the exhaust fan, and then here is the little fan below me. So standing right here, as you may notice as I'm blowing, especially when I'm blowing right here, you're going to notice the air will be moving that way. A couple reasons we're doing that: we want to get the paint out of the barn. I don't want it orbiting and following on the tractor, because just over my right shoulder is my 100, and so I want all the overspray going that way. And then it also kind of helps with the fume control. So let's go ahead and we will get stuff running, and we'll go from there. So like I said, on these parts, a lot of them we're going to paint one section. We'll go over a light coat, kind of let it dry flash for a little bit. We'll put the heavier coat on, and then we're going to set the part aside, let it dry for a little bit, and then we'll come back and we'll hit the other surfaces. Okay, so the first coat is just a really light tack coat. If you look right here, just basically kind of cover the part, and then we'll come back with a heavier coat. Okay, so we have this little small batch painted, so now we're going to go back and go in reverse here, because you can look at the parts, you can see the light coat starting to flash off. So we're going to go back, we're going to do the heavier coat. As far as how much paint we've used so far, we've dropped the cup for maybe about 3/16 of an inch. So we got a lot of paint in here to put a good coat on. Show you here as far as the coat we have. So we've gone in, this is the final coat that's in there. This is the inside of the battery box. I do want to add on the battery box sides, I'm not real happy with it. The previous owner had bought them and they're powder coated, and the tractor evidently sat outside and got some weather, so some of the paint has been flaking off, some of it has stuck, and powder coat is a bear to grind off. So I took off what I can, and it's not necessarily the world's greatest finish. I want to see how these boxes look. I think they'll be okay, but if the paint starts flaking off and becomes a mess, I'm just going to buy 2 new sides, because I just don't want to, have to, by the time I pay the cost to have the powder coat burn off and go through redoing them all, it's going to be about the same as buying 2 more new sides. So we're going to see, maybe over the life of the project, we may have to replace these kind of quickly. So anyways, so put you back here and watch finish painting. Okay, so I have done the first sides for a lot of these parts. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, go back and finish the second sides, and then when they're all done, we have them sitting back here. We'll show you what the parts look like as we let them sit for about 4 to 6 hours to cure until the paint gets nice and hard. Okay, here's a view of all the parts we have painted so far. Here are the pedals. As we said, the starter right here is not painted yet. We're holding off on it because it's going to be black, and we're going to wait till we do black for the axles and the radiator to do that. So yeah, we just have a couple more chassis parts to paint. We have the touch control that we have to do. That's going to take a while to get that all cleaned out. We're going to wire wheel it. Sandblasting would go a lot faster, but we don't want to get any of the grime and grit into the hydraulics and moving surfaces, because I don't want to have to take that apart. I've done that before on the 100, and I really don't want to have to rebuild the one on the 200. We have the hydraulic pump to do, and then we also have the distributor. Ends up the distributor drive that I cleaned and painted was the distributor drive off my 100, not off the 200, but they're the same part, so we're just going to go with it. So we have basically 3 more parts, along with the pull rods and the throttle linkage and stuff. And then we're just left with the seat area and the steering tree with all the levers on to operate the fast hitch and the touch control. So we're really getting close to having all the parts needed done to get this back together, aside from the sheet metal. So thank you for watching this episode. Hopefully you learned something about it and you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Goodbye.